So if you're under the age of 45, the odds are you're not going to be saving enough for your retirement. So change is most definitely in the air. There are changes currently being proposed to our pensions that are going to affect millions of us who are saving for our retirement. Now, these changes are going to determine who gets to retire on their terms and who's going to get left behind. Now, in the UK today, we're facing a pension system that's outdated, unequal, and dangerously out of touch. Whilst it's not completely broken, it's clear that reforms are needed, but these reforms won't fix everything, and they are unlikely to be an easy fix for your retirement. So how, and more importantly, where will our pensions need to be invested? Will we still get tax relief, and if so, will there be any strings attached? And how will our pensions be taxed in the future? So in this week's video, I'm going to take a closer look at the proposed pension reforms from the Institute of Fiscal Studies, or the IFS, as well as a broader suggestions from think tanks who are currently advising the government. So before it's too late, you need to ask yourself the question, what does pension reform really mean for me? Hi, my name's Simon and I'm a chartered financial planner with decades of experience helping literally hundreds of families prepare for their future with confidence by keeping more of what they've earned. So many of the viewers to this channel will already have got the feeling that the UK pension system is heading towards some sort of a cliff edge. And if you're aged under 50, the odds are that it's you that's going to be footing the bill. Now, while politicians are looking to tweak the triple lock and to tout investment incentives, millions of us are facing a future where retirement means working longer, saving harder, but getting less in return. Now, that means it's time to face a very hard truth, that the pension system is failing future pensioners like you and I, and unless we think about it now, financial independence in retirement could well be a fantasy for most of us. Now, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, or the IFS, they just don't deal in panic scenarios, but their July 2025 final report was published, and it looks like a wake-up call for all of us. So here's one of the headlines. 39% of employees haven't saved enough to avoid a big drop in living standards when they get to retirement. And for the self-employed, that number jumps to 66%. Now, rents are rising, making it harder to get on the property ladder, so fewer people are going to own their own homes as they enter and transition into retirement. So what that means is retirement is now no longer a protected space, it's now more of a moving target. So despite automatic enrolment and a flat rate state pension, the overall pension system just isn't delivering the outcomes that were expected. Too many people fall through the cracks, such as low earners who get no employer contributions, self-employed workers who are excluded entirely from the system, and middle earners who will see their income cut in half once they stop working. Now, the IFS reforms aim to fix some of these structural holes in the current system. Now, currently workplace pension contributions are based on a band of earnings from £6,240 to £50,270, and any income either side of that are just ignored. Now, the IFS is proposing that contributions into pension start from the first pound. And what that means is that's going to help people on lower incomes or those working part-time, for example. And interestingly, they're also suggesting a tiered contribution model, such as 3% on income up to the first £9,000 a year, and then 10% on any income from £9,000 a year to £90,000 a year. That means someone on a salary of £35,000 a year would see their default pension contributions rise from £2,300 a year to £2,870 a year, or that's an increase of about £50 a month. Now, currently, auto-enrolment starts and gets triggered if you're aged between 22 years old and state pension age and earn a minimum £10,000 a year. The IFS is suggesting that this should be extended so you could automatically join your pension scheme if you're aged between 16 years old and 74 years old. And that's going to help people save earlier, as well as those who've got to return to work in retirement to help them pay their bills. Now, these reforms are designed to boost annual pension saving by about £11 billion a year, but half of that is going to be coming from employer contributions. The problem with that, of course, is that's going to be on top of the employer national insurance increases, which are now in force, causing more hardship for the smaller companies. Now, the IFS also suggests that the triple lock is way too generous and it's too expensive too. Now, this fact and this sentiment has also been echoed by the OBR, who've come out today and said that the triple lock is costing 3 times what it used to, and scrapping it could actually save the Treasury £15.5 billion a year. Now, the IFS are also recommending scrapping the triple lock in its current format in favour of a smoothed earnings format, whereby once a state pension reaches a certain level, it will then increase by average earnings. But even if every proposal from the IFS was adopted tomorrow, it still wouldn't be enough. And that's because these effects would have limited benefits for older people or those closer to retirement. And that is why change needs to happen sooner rather than later. Now, in addition to that, increasing the state pension age to age 68 or even to age 70 will then create a poverty trap, as more people would fall into hardship just before retirement, either due to ill health, those who had physically demanding jobs maybe, or those with shorter life expectancy. Now remember, only 1 in 5 self-employed people are saving anything at all for their retirement. Just let that sink in for a minute. And what's also been noted is that there's a growing number of pensioners in rented accommodation, where that's going to add to their monthly outgoings in retirement as well. Now, the state pension system is still too complex for most people to understand, and there's also a distinct lack of support for the most vulnerable. Now, if you thought the state pension was difficult to navigate, enter the Mansion House reforms, where the government now requires default workplace pension funds to invest 10% of their fund money into UK assets. And that's going to include venture capital, private equity, infrastructure, and high growth businesses, all of which are deemed to be higher risk investments. Now, the idea seems very simple: to boost the UK economy, to unlock pension capital, and to help savers benefit from British growth. But here's the not so insignificant problem that they might have overlooked. Pension savings and investments are meant to serve the member first and not to function as a national economic policy. So whilst there's the potential for long-term growth for sure, directing or forcing billions of pounds of people's money into illiquid or high-risk domestic investments could compromise flexibility, transparency, performance, and especially if the risks aren't clearly explained to pension holders who've got less experience in investing in these areas. But what's more, the government has actually given themselves reserve powers under Article 4 to force pension providers to comply, especially if they're not satisfied with the level or the speed of the investment into these high-risk areas. Now, you may know that the pensions regulator is the UK watchdog to regulate workplace pensions to help protect our pension savings, but they've also declared a goal of supporting national growth. Now, the conflict of interest here is that their first duty is to protect their pension members, that's you and I, and not to prioritise investing in UK investments. So if you're finding value about these proposed reforms around all areas of the pension world, then please hit the like and the subscribe button, as well as the notification bell. Believe it or not, about 90% of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So please help us build a bigger community of like-minded people so we can all learn together. So what about the tax relief we get on our pension contributions? But here is a huge and mind-blowing statistic. Tax relief cost the government about £70 billion a year for tax relief. And that includes our contributions into workplace pensions, as well as our personal pensions. So whether you contribute into your scheme via salary sacrifice, relief at source, or even directly, you're going to get tax relief at your highest rate, which is either 20%, 40%, or 45%. Now, £70 billion a year is a lot of money. So enter stage left is Baroness Ross Altman, and she was the short-lived pension minister under David Cameron's government in 2015. And she has added her voice to the debate about tax relief on our pension contributions. Now, she has suggested that the government should tie pension tax relief to UK investment. That means that if the government are to subsidise our pensions to the tune of £70 billion a year, at least the government should then dictate to us
where that tax relief money should be invested, and clearly that's going to benefit the government by investing into high-risk assets in the UK. Now that certainly sounds like a patriotic pitch, but it's also a complex one. So should the tax benefits and the incentives of pension saving come with financial strings attached? Should our pension pot become a political football? So how do you feel about being forced to invest in the UK or being told where to invest your tax relief part of your pension contribution? Let me know in the comments below. Now, more to the point, will the system stay as it is, or are we all heading towards an entirely different tax model? So what exactly do I mean by that? Well, right now, the UK pensions follow the EET model. That's exempt when you contribute, exempt when your fund is growing, and then taxed when you withdraw it. Now compare that to an ISA, which is the opposite, and that follows the TEE model. So we pay tax before we pay money in, it's exempt when the fund is growing, and it's also exempt and tax-free when we take it out. Now, with record public borrowing and rising costs from an aging population, whispers in Whitehall are growing louder and louder. Should pensions become more like ISAs? Now, switching to the TEE model sounds very neat. It's simple, it's transparent, and it's definitely easier to control costs. But there's a catch. Millions of people would get smaller pensions and pay more tax up front. Now, the Treasury, they would get a financial windfall today, but pensioners, they would shoulder more of the risk for tomorrow. And that's because the government would save their £70 billion a year right now, but we would not have the extra tax relief, and that's vital to create a larger pension fund due to the compounding effects over decades. So either way, the tax structure for your pension could also be up for grabs. Now, the tax relief system could flip, and if it does, it won't be to our advantage, let me tell you that. Just like the increase in state pension age is also stacked against us. Libby Purves is a journalist, and she said it best in her article in The Times, where she said, we will all need to work to age 70 and maybe longer. So it's not just a cultural shift anymore, it's a case of financial survival. Now, state pension age is rising and it's unlikely to stop at age 68. So what that means is if you're under age 40 now, you might not get to see a penny of your state pension until you're almost 70, unless these changes happen dramatically. Now, the state pension is already costing £137 billion a year, or about 5% of GDP. But can we all work that long? Physically, mentally, can we pay into a system that was built for a different world? Now, the gap between retirement reality and public policy is widening by the year, and there's a constant friction between political promises and economic realities. So here's some practical ideas that no matter where the pension rules change, you're going to be ready for when they do. Now, first of all, is track everything. You need to know where all your pensions are and what their values are. You also need to increase your pension contributions and try and get an extra 2% into your pension, and push your employer, trying to get them to match your contributions, and stay informed as the rules are changing very, very quickly. So in order to keep you as informed as possible, I've linked a further 2 videos in this series about why 35 years of national insurance might not be enough to guarantee you the maximum state pension, and another video which explains more about these forced investment criteria for workplace pension funds. So thank you for watching to the very, very end of your time, with your patience as always. I'm going to see you all again next week.